Hey everybody, good morning. Thank you so much for joining in. I can see Bat is here. Hello.
Hi,
Happy
Bad.
Saturday. Thank you so much for joining. Um, so we're in our April discussion for the Haunted Victorian Book Club. So we're going to be discussing Hester Fox's new release today, the Book of Thorns. So I didn't have a whole lot of people in the Discord chatting about it this month, so it'll be interesting to see who pops into the chat. So I'm here with my friend E.D Lewis, who of course is a fellow booktuber and bookstagrammer and all the things. And we very much read the same kinds of books. We're both like massive Buffy
Mhm.
fans. We both love Gothic books. So why don't you go ahead and just quickly tell us about yourself and about your channel?
Hi, I'm E.D Lewis. As she said, I'm a booktuber. I cover horror, gothic, Buffy, Dark Shadows, that kind of stuff. Uh, Not much else to say, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess we kind of really bonded over our love of Buffy and Gothic books
Oh,
and
that
all the
sounds really
things.
good.
You mentioned Dark Shadows, which I've kind of had a hankering to get into the classic show lately, so I need to pick up that one. It's been years since I watched it, and I haven't read any of the books either. So, um, definitely two Gothic lovers here. So this is our second Hester Fox book that I read for the book club. I've read pretty much, I think, all of her books now. Um, and it kind of varies. So there's books that I absolutely adore by her, and then there's books that are just kind of okay. So getting into this one, just very quickly going over the basic plot points. So basically, we have these two sisters who have been separated when they were younger, and one sister is living with her very well off uncle, and but she is not having such a great time in that situation and kind of breaks free from that. And then the other sister kind of has a very impoverished background, and she's working as a maid in a household, and both sisters are having issues with men in those households that are very much taking advantage of their situation. And both of them kind of break free from that situation and end up kind of in new lives. So the well off sister actually ends up in the French military and marches with Napoleon's army during that time, and the other sister ends up in a new household. But the interesting thing is that both of these sisters sort of have a very psychic connection with plants and flowers. So the imagery of, you know, all things floral and gardening and everything makes a really big, I guess, character in the story,
Mhm.
character in and of itself. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we start off. And so for myself, I gave this book 3 stars. I found the beginning was very draggy. It took me a long, I had to put this one down. Like we were in old school April as well, so I started it. I actually put it aside for several weeks and picked it up again. And I was sort of a little bit disappointed at the beginning because, you know, I am a lover of Hester Fox's writing and a lot of her books. But the beginning was very draggy, and I found that, you know, the plot points kind of jumped around a lot. There wasn't a whole lot of character development. There
Mhm.
was things happening very, very quickly. And so it wasn't until towards the last third of the book, I guess, because the book is written in 2 parts. It wasn't until the second part of that book started that I really started to get into it. So that's kind of my overall thoughts. What about you?
I really enjoyed this book, and I was kind of nervous after you'd set it down and stuff and picked it back up. I was like, "Uh-oh." I was like, Um, yeah, I really like this book. I thought it was really interesting. Yeah, it was kind of slow, but I don't have a problem with slow books at the beginning. Yeah, it did take quite a while to build up, but I kind of to me that just kind of helped with the mystery, especially Cornelia's side of it,
Yeah.
when she, took off from her uncle's place and she ended up joining, the French army, which I thought was really bizarre, but fun. Um, what was I going to say next? I'm having a moment.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on in this. Like we have two points of view, so we see both sisters from both sides. The thing that I really did
Mhm,
enjoy at the beginning was their steadfast feminism when they were
mm,
experiencing what they were experiencing with men in the household. And Cornelia especially, I think she was a little bit naive because she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna break free and I'm gonna do this on my own." And that didn't go so well for her. She kind of ended up, like living in a one-bedroom apartment and have any money. And she
mm,
was writing these books about um flowers, basically, her love of
yeah.
flowers and all of that, and she wrote kind of under an alias, and it was like she made a little bit of money at it, but she, I think, woke up very quickly to the reality of what it's like out there because she had a very privileged upbringing.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, and having to go from that into the situation, especially when she ended up at the nunnery and she's like, well, I guess I'm gonna go here because I have nowhere else to go, and I was expecting me in, Paris by now.
Yeah, and then she got approached randomly by an officer and ended up going into the French military, but, she has a lot of, she has a lot of strength, and even as a privileged woman who ended up in a real life situation, she
Mm,
marched with them, she didn't eat, she didn't sleep, she, went through the whole, her feet were hurting, but she wouldn't dare say that they were, and all of that sort of thing. The only thing that I would have loved to know a little bit more about, because I loved the kind of sapphic element in this book, and I would have loved to learn a little bit more about her and her previous lover that her uncle
mhm.
found out that she was in love with a woman. And, I don't know, I would have loved to have kind of like flashbacks to that.
Yeah, there wasn't much there. I mean, wasn't all they had pretty much said there was, like, the time they'd spent, like, in the garden and the flowers had sprouted? Yeah, there wasn't much there. I agree, it would have been nice to have seen more of Anna.
Yeah. And there was a lot of skeezy men on her side between her uncle who was assaulting her, and then, of course, he tried
Yeah.
to marry her off to this officer who basically said that he wanted to treat her like a horse and she needed to be broken, um, to become submissive, and, like, when that kinda stuff comes up in books, it just, it really affects me.
And I didn't even know if his character I figured it would probably pop back up, but I didn't know how he was gonna pop back up, and then
Yeah.
how he did at the ending of part 1, and really in part 2, it was,
Yeah, when they were talking
"Here it
about
comes."
when he was on trial and he walked in, I was like, "Oh, no."
I
So I'm glad that he was a character that they did bring back in.
Mhm. I didn't even make the connection at first when he popped in at Lisbeth's, place of work,
Yeah.
when he was in the cabinet with her. Yeah, it didn't even dawn on me that was the same character.
It didn't at first with me either. And, so I really liked how the 2 stories kinda got pieced together because I was
Mhm.
wondering, I'm like, "How are these 2 sisters?" 'Cause at some point they're gonna cross paths, right?
Yeah.
It has to happen. And I think it was put together really well. So my only, I guess, beef with the book is that I would have loved to see a little bit more character development and a little bit more plot development at certain points. Like when Lisbeth finds out that she was pregnant with Isidore, with Isidore's
Yeah,
baby.
Isidore's child.
Um and like she goes through the whole emotion and like this is going to be my friend and this is going to be my companion in life because she's a poor housemaid and everything. And then like almost within what a chapter she has a
Yeah, she has,
miscarriage and I'm like
miscarriage
so
just
that
happens almost out of the blue.
yeah, so I was like, "Oh, did that really even need to be part of the book?" Because they didn't carry it on. I mean, I think it was a good angle, I guess. It just didn't. It's almost like, when you hear about a character having a miscarriage, I didn't
Mhm.
have enough time to get attached to her pregnancy before she had a miscarriage. So I didn't feel anything about it.
Mm.
So that was kind of my take.
I can see that. But
Yeah. So, and then, the handsome young officer comes in, and, she starts the love affair, that way. And then, of course, on Cornelia's side, she has kind of the 2 love interests going. She has
mm,
Sophie and, Henri, which I loved that element, and it was really interesting, and I think it was really daring to bring the 3 of
oh
them
yeah,
together,
definitely.
because, Henri and Sophie had actually had a relationship before, so now they have kind of the 3 of them in this, um, love affair, I guess you would call it.
I was kind of disappointed because it seemed like with when they finally all got together that they were together for like it almost seemed like one night. It must have been at least a few nights though, because
Well, and
they
that's the other
mentioned.
thing. Yeah, so it was very quick, like, I found these relationships to be very quick.
Mm. And
So that
like I
was
would have liked to have seen more of Captain Norton and Lisbeth's
yes.
interaction. And they had very few interactions before later when he comes in to her rescue.
Yeah, and so that's what I find, like, especially in Gothic stories, I really like the buildup of relationships.
Mm.
And, the development and well, I mean, for lack of a pun, the blossoming of relationships, so I found that was the part of the book that was a little bit lacking, and it was kind of
Mm.
bouncing all over the place. So that was the point where I just kind of put it aside a little bit, because I found that the development was lacking a little bit there.
Mm.
But, yeah, so let's talk about the flowers, because you have Cornelia, who's an author, and she starts to help Henri with his reading and writing and
Mm.
everything, and, we kinda learn that the flowers for both girls are attached to their emotions, which I thought was a really cool thing to put into this book, and then towards the end, you find out that Lisbeth, her emotional attachment to flowers is when she's upset
Mm.
or in a negative mood or whatever, and for Cornelia, it's attached to love. So when Cornelia is experiencing love and all of that kind of stuff, the flowers bloom. And, I thought that was a really, really cool element. I really liked how she worked that in there.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that in a book before, and
No.
it was a really cool element, especially how it works in later, early in the plot and much later too.
I think my favorite scene in the book was, I can't remember the officer's name when he was testifying against Cornelia, because she was on trial for witchcraft,
Mm.
for making the flowers bloom on the battlefield, and treason, and the whole thing. And, like, literally the rose came out of his mouth and he choked to death. And, I mean, I think that was one of my favorite scenes in the book, and I thought it was really, really cool. So, I think this is the first time I've ever seen, like, botany used as a main plot point and almost like a character in and of itself within a story.
Mm. And it very much took on since it had it became very much a character of its own. It was almost like the how a lot of Gothic books, the spooky house is kind of a character within itself. This takes that role
Yeah,
completely on.
yeah. I totally agree. So let's go to the comments. I don't wanna lose my spot here. Difference in opinions makes for a fantastic conversation. It absolutely does. Um, and reading is subjective, so it's always, it's interesting to have conversations with people that are not gonna judge you for your thoughts. So if anybody else has actually read this book, let me know what your star rating would be, or like your favorite parts, your non-favorite parts. Makes for the best book club discussion. Also, when everybody hates it and piles on. So that was the case for Bluebeard's Castle, Bluebeard's Ghost, whatever it was called. I can't even remember
I
now.
think Bluebird's Castle. I still have yet to read it, so I'm
Oh,
nervous about reading
when
that
you
now.
do, I actually really want to hear your thoughts on it, because you know that Jackie and I and Jen really just dumped all over that book. I agree. I love it when conversation goes well, and it's neat to hear other sides. Absolutely. Oh, hi, Jackie. Good
Hi,
morning.
Jackie.
This was a 2-star read for me, but I think some of that is my
Mm,
fault because I had expectations of more witchcraft and less magical, which I could totally understand. Speaking of the witchcraft element, I found that towards the end when Cornelia is on trial, it very much had the echoes of The Witch of Blackbird Pond. I don't know, have you read it?
I have it, but I have not read it yet.
It very much has the same sort of, a
Mm.
woman, a feminist woman being on trial for witchcraft because she's a strong woman, and obviously in Cornelia's situation, she was blooming flowers with her mind. So I mean, I could kind of see in that day and age that she would definitely be considered a witch, absolutely. So
Yeah.
um yeah, I mean, uh oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Haven't finished this one yet, but enjoying it. There are flaws, yeah, and I totally agree.
Yeah, there are.
But there is cool stuff in it. I just wish, like I said, I wish like more time was spent on the character development and the plot development, but this was quite long. It was quite a long book. I don't even know how many pages it was because I read it on audio.
I did the same, so I have no idea. Didn't even know what the book was about. I just went in blind with this. I didn't
Oh,
even read the
really?
synopsis.
I'm always nervous to do that with books. I know a lot of people who go in blind with whatever they read, and it works for them. I don't know. I don't know if it's my anxiety or my clench on control,
Mm.
but I always got to know at least a little bit about what it's going to be before I go into it. So
See, anymore, I kind of go in blind, and then at some point, I might read like partway through. I'm like, okay, now what is the book supposed to be about? So I stay on track, and I'm like, oh, okay, I might read some of the synopsis, but I don't think I read any of it till after I finished it.
yeah. Um, the other aspect I thought was super interesting was because in Cornelia's story, she basically fled her uncle's house and she took her fine dresses from an upper class sort of girl, and it was very concentrated on this purple dress that she was wearing, and I thought it was really cool towards the end when we find out that that's the reason why um was it I can't remember their names now. Armand, the officer that approached her
Yes.
originally, it was because she was wearing purple, and he thought that meant that she had loyalty, to the French military and to Napoleon and his, what he stood for and everything. So I thought that was a really cool element to come in here too.
Mhm.
For book clubs, I try to start cold and refer to blurbs and such only if I'm confused. Blurbs often
Mhm.
too spoil. You know,
They do.
I can't remember what I was reading one time, and somebody on Instagram had like full on spoilers in their post, and they didn't say that it was like a spoiler review or anything, and it ruined an entire book. It was the worst.
Golly, it's like people, yeah, that, and then people putting stickers on the books. Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about my thrifted books that I have to peel the damn stickers off every single time, and then my nails are down to the nail beds, and it's just awful.
There was who was it recently that had, and they were having trouble it was Katrina. She was trying to get a sticker off her book, and it was a huge one. And she started getting some of the book to come off with it.
I've had a couple actually. I've damaged them, and it's not great because like I buy these because they're vintage collectibles,
Mm.
and I end up peeling like a chunk of the artwork off the back or like the synopsis or whatever. It's the worst. Um oh, thank you so much for joining in, Bad. It was good to hear from you. Ghost hunting this weekend. We'll catch the rest of the video later. Have a great discussion. Bye
My
bye.
dad.
Ghost hunting sounds like a good weekend to me.
She does so many of those good ghost hunting videos.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's pretty cool that a lot of us, like you and I, can connect on like gothic and vampire stuff. And like
Mhm.
with her, I love the ghosty part. So, did you read? You read the Widow of Pale Harbor in the first month too,
Yes.
right? Between the two, because I know that one was a little bit of a dud for me as well. I would definitely rate this one higher.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm not sure what I'm gonna rate this one. I mean, it won't be 5 stars. I still really enjoyed it. I really liked this one, but maybe 4, I'm thinking. But yeah, I like this one much better than the Widow of Pale Harbor.
And I would recommend to you or anybody in the chat to keep giving Hester Fox a try, because I think like The Widow of Pale Harbor is probably my least favorite, and this one is probably in the second to last spot. So her other books are absolutely fantastic. And she really, I thought it was lacking in this one a little bit. I don't know if it was because maybe it was too long and a lot of the detail and a lot of her atmospheric writing was probably edited out to bring it down maybe to a reasonable size, which sometimes is unfortunate because you
Mhm,
do lose a little bit of that development with plot and character and just the really beautiful language that I've experienced in her other books. So, um, but I mean, I would still say this was really well done, and I love her writing. Like her style of writing is definitely within the Gothic sphere, and I think it's beautiful.
yeah, it definitely, especially I thought with this one.
Have you read The Language of Flowers by Vanessa Diffenbach? It's
That name
contemporary
sounds
romance.
familiar.
Oh,
Language of Flowers.
no, I haven't. That sounds really interesting. So now that we've talked about like neither one of us have really experienced botany um in a lot of books that we've read, that's really interesting.
Hmm.
I'll have to check that one out. And if anybody else has any books that are similar to this where botany plays a role, definitely let us know. Wasn't it was the book that Cornelia wrote, wasn't it called The Language of Flowers? I can't remember now.
For some reason, I think it was something similar to the book title, I thought.
Or
When I
maybe.
was refreshing my memory through it, I didn't get through all of the book. I stopped about where the middle of the trial was because I was re-listening to some of it over the past few days on like speed 2 or something like that.
Yeah. I will confess that I did speed it up there for a while, especially when I was starting to fade a little bit at the beginning and towards the middle. I was trying to speed through it so I could get to, because I knew it was going to pick up. It had to, but
Mhm.
and I knew with the book split out into two parts, it was probably going to pick up in that part two. And it did. So I confess I did speed it up to like two and a half times speed there for a little bit. Which Hester Fox book would you recommend? Only read The Widow of Pale Harbor. So my favorite book by her is The Heir to Blackwood Library. It's really, really good. And in that one, there's a library that plays kind of its own character within the book. So you have this young woman who
Hmm.
inherits a mysterious manor because she has a long lost ancestor and she's the only heir. So, but the only caveat is that if she signs the ownership, she has to live there. She can't just sell it or live somewhere else. So she has to live
Right.
there and she discovers like this huge library. And the library is kind of a character on its own. And it has, yay!
I knew I
There
had it
it is.
somewhere around here.
Um, it has a lot of occult elements in it and uh like an occult book that is cursed and all of this stuff.
Hmm.
So that is my absolute favorite. It's really, really good. And then the one next to that would be The Witch of Willow Hall. So that's another witchy kind of tale. And that's one as well where her writing really conveys a lot of emotion that I thought was lacking in this one. So that's why I'm thinking maybe it was edited a little bit heavily,
Hmm.
because she does really have a way to convey a lot of emotion. And so in The Witch of Willow Hall, you have two sisters that detest each other, and you really feel it in the book. And then there's a lot of grief in there as well. And I thought both of those elements were written really, really well. I mean, a book about books. That's all you need to know.
Years Library sold.
Yeah. There's also The Orphan of Cemetery Hill, which is quite good, and that's about, well, she's an orphan, obviously, but she kinda gets adopted by this, graveyard keeper, and she can see and speak to ghosts, and there's kind of, like, this murder that happens, and she's trying to help solve what happened to this young woman, and that one is really cool too.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, so I have to say that Hester Fox, even though I don't like pretty much all of her books before Widow of Pale Harbor and this one were all 5 stars for me. Um, she has a lot of imagination, and she knows that
Yeah.
people who love Gothic literature are going to grasp onto the themes like that, like an orphan that could speak to ghosts and trying to solve a murder, and mysterious libraries and occult books. And I mean, people like you and I are going to pick that up automatically.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so we've only got a couple of people in the chat. Let me know if you guys have any questions for either one of us. There was a lot going on in this book, and it's kind of hard not to give away, a lot of plot, because I know there's
Yeah.
people in here who are still reading it. Um, so the last thing I'll say about the actual plot, is that Cornelia does end up, I guess, on trial for witchcraft and treason and everything, but I won't give away the actual ending. But I was satisfied in the ending. I thought it was really,
Yes.
really cool that Lisbeth managed to get back to um, Cornelia's, I guess, childhood home, but she realized that she was there as well when she was a little girl. And she learns kind of through the flowers what happened to the two of them, and that their uncle separated them when they were young. So one ended up in a privileged life and one ended up in a poor life. So I thought that was a good way to wrap it up and kind of bring the story around, because I do find, especially if you have dual timelines and there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of plot elements, writers have difficulty in kind of bringing that full circle. So I was satisfied in the ending. Yeah, and this is kind of the way I feel about it too. When the story sticks the landing, yeah, you feel satisfied in it. It gets wrapped up in a nice little bow, and everything is good. And I think probably to like from the beginning to the middle of the book, I would have been along the same lines as what Jackie said, as a 2-star book.
Mm.
Because I found that, like I said, the character development needed a little bit of help, and the plot was a little bit bouncy, but then she started bringing it together, and I bumped it up. So, but I did, like I said, I did really enjoy that she didn't have any problem with going there with the sapphic element, especially.
Mm.
And, for the time period, obviously, that would have been super taboo, and I'm surprised that her
Yeah.
uncle didn't put her in a nunnery. 'Cause I'm sure most men there probably would have put her in a workhouse or put her in a nunnery or whatever,
Yeah,
because
definitely
she
in that
was,
time.
you know, back in the, 19th century,
Mhm.
that definitely would have been frowned upon back then. So, yeah. So that's pretty much all I have to say about it. This was a little bit more of a shorter discussion. We don't have a whole lot going on in the comments, which is totally fine. So I'll leave it open for another couple of minutes. I wanted to let you know that I'm starting the new Kendara Blake probably tomorrow. So I know you did let me know that I'm okay. You loved it. It's fine.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
glad
I
you enjoyed
definitely
it,
loved it.
because I'm scared.
It's okay to be scared, and I'll be really curious as to see what you think of it. Because I mean, I couldn't even keep it down until my review saying that I loved it, because I had to just put it out there, I'm like, "I did love this book."
Yeah, and I think was it today that you posted your review?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna watch it yet
Yeah, I was
until
trying
I
to
get
keep
it finished.
spoilers down. I do spoil, of course, some things for the previous books. Anybody who hasn't
Yeah,
read the previous books, there's a few little things, but I tried to keep things quiet for this one.
yeah, so, I I'm just gonna save it, and I'm gonna completely develop my own thoughts, but I'm really, really excited to get into it. Cornelia was more valuable as a husband seeker, and absolutely, and I think both
Mm.
girls were to some degree, and I mean, women in general back then, it's all they were good for, right? Um, so that's it. What else are you working on? What else are you reading?
I've kind of fallen into a little bit of a slump after like the two big reading months that I've had this year, February and April. So I did start a book on the 30th of April because I really wanted to get read. I haven't read 20 pages of it yet.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm really struggling, and I want to get only like 3 books read this month. I want to read that one. I want to read the new book club book, which I haven't gotten started on. And then there's another little book I have something planned for that I want to get read.
Nice.
But I don't know what's going to happen now.
Speaking of the new book club book, which I haven't started yet, it is The Secrets of Heartwood Hall by Katie Lumsden. And I've heard there's a bit of chatter in the Discord group that it's really, really good from people who've read it. Some people said it's
Mhm.
been 5 stars. So I'm really, really looking forward to that one. I have it on audio as well. So I'm hoping that the atmosphere and the author, or sorry, the narrator are going to do it justice. And, because I find with audiobooks, if it doesn't have a good narrator, I'm not in it. It can ruin it.
Which the narrators, I thought, for this one did a really great job.
Yes. Yeah, she really did, especially with the French accents.
Mhm.
I thought she did a really, really good job. And I have to say that I think it's a different narrator for this one, but the girl who reads the other Hester Fox books, she does a really good job too.
Hmm.
So I would highly recommend um, everybody picking up some more uh, Hester Fox books. I used the Libro credit on it. It's always the worst when you use a credit and it's either like a DNF or it's just a really, really bad book.
I almost used credit on the new one for this month, but I decided to save my credit, and I went ahead and just bought the Kindle for this one.
Mm.
So I'm hoping to get to it, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to The Secrets of Heartwood Hall too. Just got copy from Thrift. I think you told me that
Ooh.
last week, Amanda. So that's perfect. So the two books that I'm going to be going into, I'm just finishing up The Prom Queen, Fear Street number 15,
I need to read
which is the one that they're going to be doing the new movie, the Netflix movie of. So I actually don't have it in my collection yet. I had to get it on Kindle,
Huh.
but I really wanted to read it because I'm doing kind of a graduation, prom queen, homecoming queen sort of theme right now. Into May, of course, as graduation month. But once I get those ones finished up, so I'm going to be doing Secrets of Heartwood Hall and the new Buffy are going to be my two. I'm hoping both of them are going to be bangers because I need some good reads. I feel like this year has been lacking a little bit
Mm.
for me in my reads. Like I've had some good ones, but I don't know. For the most part, it's been lacking a little bit. So I really need some good ones to pick me up here.
I'm hoping that those ones will be the ones that pick you up,
I'm hoping so. I
especially against the darkness.
yes. All the Buffy. And we have to, if anybody was on the Buffy live show that we did on Cameron's channel, which we had a ton of fun, Kelsey has never seen the original Buffy movie. And I'm like,
Closing.
we got to do a watch party. That's it. We got to do a watch party for her to get the whole Buffy backstory. Because I don't know, like some people are like Die Hard movie, some people are Die Hard show, but I love them both for what they are.
Yeah, they're both really great and really entertaining. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I'm gonna wrap it up. Secrets of Heartwood Hall is up next, and really, really hoping that that one's gonna be a good one, and we can have it's kinda crazy that the live show, the conversation for that'll be taking place in June, like, we're going into June, which is kinda nuts.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm way behind on my reading, I'm not gonna lie. I actually saw the original Buffy movie,
Ah,
in 1992 when it came out on VHS, so I didn't see it in the cinema, but I saw it when it came out on VHS, and I just loved it. It's so good. So, thanks everybody for popping in, and thank you, E.D Lewis, as always, for being on the show.
thank you.
I'm gonna sign out, and we will have our discussion of Heartwood Hall early in June, so I'll see you guys then. Bye.